All right. So we'll call the meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock. Welcome everybody on a nice sunny day.
Yes.
First item, we'll talk about additions and deletions to the agenda. We do have one addition. There's some liquor. We'll have to convene as the liquor board and approve a couple more liquor licenses. And we'll do that, I think, maybe we'll call it item 8.5 after the CSWD discussion.
Although if Maureen's not here and we're waiting for her for the next agenda item.
Well, but then we have others waiting for items too, so.
Okay. All right.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then any public comment? Doesn't appear like we have any. So we'll jump right in, and maybe another delay might be to hold off for Maureen on the appointment to the agency. We'll give it a few minutes and jump to the next item, because we're hoping that Maureen would be here. Next, item 4 is to consider an offer of a gift of land, perhaps an easement from the Quinn Trust. And I'm not sure if we were going to have someone here to talk about that.
Helen was going to come. She may be a few minutes because we had that on as 7:15.
Right.
So
Okay.
she's
I'd
probably-
recommend doing the liquor licenses.
All right, that's a good idea. That's what I was thinking.
It just takes a minute, right?
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to convene as the Board of Liquor Control.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have 4 licenses, one from Good Times, one from Papa Nick's, one from the Public House, and one from Frost. So this is the license,
Right.
rather than temporary ones that we were approving previous.
There is another one in here, just for your information,
Okay.
from Frost. They're doing an outdoor, a special event permit for one outdoor event.
They did that last year.
So the select board doesn't need to sign those, but we just put it in there just so you are aware of that one.
These are class 1 or class A, is that what they're called?
I pull that one out.
Not that it
It's,
matters.
yeah, it's just the one-time one, whatever.
No, but I mean the actual.
these.
others.
Yeah, and Frost is then applying for a regular liquor, because
They're-
before they were
Right, yes.
only doing temporaries.
Temporary,
Yeah,
right.
okay. Okay.
This is a first class,
First class.
and there's one second class. The others are first class, so one second class.
Who's
and three
second
first-
class? Frost?
Frost.
So I'll make a motion to approve the first class liquor licenses for Good Times Cafe, Papa Nick's, and the Public House, and a second class liquor license for Frost Beer Works.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? So Frank is here. We usually ask Frank, are there any concerns or issues you've had in the last year? Okay, good to hear. Did you have something?
That was my question.
All right.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the motion passed. And we'll have to sign these. Maybe we can start them around. Do we have to?
Come out of the liquor.
Come out,
I'll make
yeah.
a motion to adjourn as the Board of Liquor Control.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, now we'll be back.
Want to go on to adopting the local emergency operations plan? Sometimes
We can
in
do
the
that.
audience and we don't have a complete set of
Sure.
people for the
So
other
that's
things.
item 5. And this is really information only, and I think we'll defer to, is it Frank who's going to talk?
Is
or?
this the SRO?
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
no, this is we skipped that one right now because I see Adam's not here yet either, and he was going
Okay.
to attend.
Sure he would want.
Yeah,
so where are we going then?
the local emergency operations plan.
Oh, okay.
And that's with
Yes.
7A.
So that was 7.
Yeah,
This
we
is
bypassed a few.
This is a yearly approval of our LEPC or local.
Guidance
Um,
guidance plan for local emergencies.
Yep. We have a copy that's it'll be posted on our website, And it defines really a big, long checklist and information. If there was a serious emergency, what we would go. I don't know, Al, you want to come up? And you don't have to. I mean,
I don't really have much.
Yeah.
Pretty much same thing we do every year.
I took a look at it. I had a couple questions, but I don't know if anybody else had some questions on it.
I had some questions. I guess I thought that more of the information ought to be filled out. Like if you wouldn't mind having your work number on there
We could,
or your cell
Yeah.
phone, I
could
think
do
it's
that.
important that information, that if we need it in an emergency, that we have it. And, that I think that was my main
Okay. I didn't
concern,
notice that, but I
was
see
that,
it.
that we have that information.
Yeah.
And I also, in terms of the infectious disease thing, I was glad to see that the health officer, I think, is there. There was, and I take it that the names under the high risk are childcare centers?
Yeah, they're one of the high
Yeah.
risk
Is
areas.
Mary Lewis
What-
still doing childcare?
I don't know if she is or not. I do see some people. We removed one name out of there,
Okay.
so
I don't know.
I don't think she is.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't think
I
so.
had a question.
Yeah.
Just curious if they're in order of high risk, or
No,
those are just
no,
high risk?
Just
Okay.
names. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question was similar to Andrea's in that there's blank spots on here. Is there more that needs to be filled in, or are those blank
There's.
spots?
This is the small document.
Yeah.
So you're really adopting the principle, I guess,
Got
is
it.
the best way
'Cause
to
I
put
figured
it.
that this seems
There's
kind of
there's a
thin
lot of pieces to
compared
it.
to perhaps what sits
There's
in
a
a binder at
lot
your
of
desk,
pieces.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot of pieces to it.
So that leads to my
Right.
second question, and
Yep.
that was: is there anything substantially different this year over last
No,
year?
really,
And
that would
how
be
has it
just
evolved from year to
adding
year?
your name, but because that's why we have to wait until after the elections to make sure everybody's the same, and it just has to go through that annual adoption process.
So does it change from year to year? Does it evolve at all from year to year?
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
and so
it
how
does, and there'll be.
can you give us any examples?
There's
of that?
actually a whole new plan to be written next year. The state's coming out with a completely different document, so we'll have to go through quite a lot next
So
year.
next
So
year is the big change.
Next year is a big change year, yeah. And it won't even look anything like this, unfortunately, because
And-
this is really a user. I mean, I was part of the design for this with the state working group,
Yeah.
and it's really a document that you use on the fly.
Sure, sure.
Where the new document won't be that. So I think we'll still have a lot of this similar piece in the beginning of our document next year.
So the changes next year are how it's formatted, or what's
the
in
whole
it?
format, a lot of information. I think my feelings are probably in the end you're going to see a lot of communities won't fill it out because I mean literally this the document that's coming is hours and hours and hours of work
Sure.
to do it. Where this one, it's pretty straightforward and you can use it on the fly because that's the design why the check boxes and everything
so the new
are there.
one won't be one. This one you'd pull out and you'd start going
Pull out
down
and
the
start
list.
using it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The new one it's a whole different format and
What's the purpose of the new one?
couldn't tell you. I wasn't on that working group this year, so
Will the new one replace this one?
it will. Yes, yeah. But we will still have this as like
A
the first
checklist.
page,
Yeah.
so we can still have
Yeah.
the needed information. I mean, it will all be there, but it's going to be much harder to find, and you're going to have to dig pretty deep to get to a lot of the things that are really right up front in this document.
Yeah,
So,
I can see how this would be very useful in
Yep.
an emergency,
Yep.
even where people are going, it's not filled out where they're evacuating
Right.
to, which makes sense.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the whole reason why this format was developed was because when you make application to FEMA for reimbursement, those are all things you have to have.
Ah,
So by running this checklist down, you're actually documenting
Accomplishing
everything
that.
as you go.
Yeah.
So you can still use this even though you have to
Yeah.
fill out this
Yeah,
new
yes.
document that you don't
Yep.
think will be actually very useful?
Yeah, I think before it's done, you'll probably see some changes, considerable changes to it, so. And there are many pages to the master document of this. And, you know, obviously some of it pertains to us, some of it doesn't. And, you know, you kind of pick and choose as you go what you want to fill out. And, you know, there are a lot of forms like the 205, the ICS 205 form is a form that you use for a communications plan. So that's you fill out on the fly. Same thing on, I think it's a 201, which is your incident management plan. So you have to fill that out obviously as you go. And, you know, there are a lot of pieces to the big document. And, you know, rather than print out everything for this to have you adopt, because a lot of it's blank pages. You know,
That
so,
you fill out.
right,
Similar,
yeah.
like, so it says Champlain Valley Union High School is a shelter, and it says shelter manager, it's blank, because you'd fill out who's
Right,
gonna be.
whoever it is,
yeah,
you're right.
that-
Yep,
that
we have
gets appointed
contact
now.
numbers, but it
Yeah.
depends on who it is,
Yep.
right? So, and that is, like I say, is a document really that's born out of having used these documents before and actually having to go through the FEMA process to get reimbursement, because those are all the things they want to know. You know, they don't really care who the name of people are that you could have. They want to know who it was.
Yeah.
So, and the
And-
time, and
Does the state, I mean, so we approve this, and who else approves it? Is
that's it.
That's
It goes onto
Okay.
a shelf in Waterbury, copy
Okay.
of it. Yep. And then regional planning will have a copy
Yeah.
of it, because what they've done now is they've kind of interjected regional planning in through a contract so that they're like the next layer of contact for us. So rather than the state calling me direct or whoever is on the list and getting an update on what's happening in the town, regional
Not during an
planning.
emergency.
Yes, during an emergency. Regional planning will call, and they do call quite frequently. So, yeah, Lee
Who
Crow.
calls from regional planning?
Lee Crow. That's his job. They have a contract with emergency management to do that. So I'll get a call from Lee, and sometimes I get a call from Dan. It depends on who's working. Do you have in the report? What's your status? You know. So, and when you think about it, you can't really have 251
Calling the
towns
state,
calling
yeah.
into Waterbury
Yeah.
with their report. So it's a little data collection management tool, I guess.
Particularly when their system goes underwater in the
Oh,
flood.
yes. Yep, and they have a lot of problems, and, which, you got to filter it out.
Yeah.
So,
All right, is there any other
I just
discussion?
wondered whether we wanted to put the Charlotte Road on there.
I was thinking the O'Neill Road has flooded over to that little bridge.
yep,
Yeah,
I mean,
but that's, yeah,
yeah, it's really
the major commuter.
right, yeah, and I mean, it's where the highest frequency typically, or should that an event occur there,
It'd be the first
biggest
places.
impact.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
the biggest impact. So,
Okay.
yeah, we know typically it floods a lot. Charlotte Road floods a lot, but
Yeah.
it, we deal with it, and we're able to, get through it. And it's not really that. It's not like it's taking out the road every time. So
Okay.
it
Well,
certainly
it
can
doesn't
be.
take out really any
Right.
of these, I mean.
Right, it doesn't. But if you look at some of them, they want to know the major routes,
Right.
and
Well,
that's
what I was saying.
how
I
that
think
relates. Yeah.
Charlotte Road is more of a major route than
Right.
Lewis Creek Road.
Yeah. Yep.
But-
Hayden
Yeah.
Hill's one that floods.
And Hayden,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But it more or less on. It's historical. I think a lot of it too, because
Well-
not all of it's driven by us. So
Well,
yeah.
I don't know, it just
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it's very logical then. The other thing is would it make sense to also list, other than just the any places where there's hazardous materials stored?
That's under a whole nother
Yeah.
Tier
another
2.
document.
Okay.
document. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have my cell phone number, so you can put that in there.
Yep.
Whoever does it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any more
Trying to
discussion?
think who of you have taken the 401? You did, right? So you can, I don't remember if, trying to think who else took it, because it has to be somebody that did the 401 that can sign this. So just as long as somebody,
That was quite a while ago.
oh, it doesn't matter. So, yeah. That's the only requirement.
All right. Any other more discussion on it? Are we okay with approval? All those in favor? Was there a motion? No.
I'll make the
Okay.
motion to approve the local emergency operations plan for 2018.
Second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passed. Thank you. Nice article in the paper, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. Where are we going next?
So we could do the Quinn, let's see, do we have that? No, so we could do, I think the Quinn land, the gift of land next. Jerry, do you want to come up here and be in our guest of honor seat?
And Jerry, just tell us your connection to the Quinn property.
I'm a cemetery commissioner.
Yeah. Okay.
And do you want me to start from the beginning of the donation or?
Yeah, I know very little about it,
Yeah.
honestly, so I would love to hear as much as you can fill me in on. Thank you.
Would it help to show the map? Or?
We
I
have
think
that.
so.
Yeah, I'll pull it up in just a second.
Yeah, I think Renee has
Lots of
it.
documents.
So this has been in the work since this property's up for sale, or even before that?
Well, I think Polly Quinn died last year.
Maybe a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the cemetery commissioners first walked the land with some of the children in October, and then Mitch drew up a map. I mean, they basically said that they wanted to donate for, the part that's in red on this map. But then, we were looking at it to see, how valuable that would be to the cemetery. And there's not a whole lot of value there. Pretty much just right where that arrowhead is the only place that we could actually create more burial space.
I think if you looked at the other map, you would see why.
The colored one.
Yeah.
Because it shows the stream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did this start with us approaching the Quinns, or
No.
the Quinns approaching us?
I believe was it written in Polly's will?
Well, I don't think it was
or-
in her will. It had always been her intention
Got it.
to donate it, and she talked about it from time to time. So I think her children knew that and
Wanted to find a way
wanted to
to.
make sure that this was kind of taken care of either simultaneously or recognized that when somebody would be looking at the land that was for sale, that they would know that this portion was going to go to the town.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So when we looked at that, we thought, well, there isn't great value there, but the other issue is that the parcel all the way to the east there, for historical reasons, has no access to it right now.
At the very top.
Yeah.
There's no access.
Yeah, and there is a lot of good burial space up there. So Mitch drew this new line that's 125 feet, what is that, south of the stream?
Yeah.
And he said, if that was donated with it, that that could potentially create an access way. Not that we have the money to build a road that right now, but at least it would be a possibility in the future. So they said that's fine, or the letter says basically I don't know the wording. They want to create an easement for us in the extra part and then donate the part that was in red in the previous map, just outright. just change the property line. So that seems good.
Yeah. It needed to be that distance so that you would meet all the setbacks for the stream buffer. So that's where the 125 feet came from.
Makes sense.
So the cemetery commission owned the
Yes,
block at the top of the dark blue?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was from the Mannings.
And there's nothing there now?
No.
right.
You can actually access it. You see that little piece that goes on the very eastern side of the
Yeah.
existing cemetery? That was a small piece that was donated so that there would be access. And
You can walk there.
yeah, you can easily walk there, and it would mean putting another culvert in, but it's probably not. It would be a lot more difficult to cross that stream at that point. It's so. And I believe that piece came to the town, the Manning parcel came to the town as part of a subdivision, because where Russell Fox's house is, which is to the north, further to the east, that was a subdivision that happened. And so at that time, that's when that Manning piece came to the town.
So what would be the steps? So now we're learning about this. What are the next steps that are going to happen?
That's what I'm here to find out.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think that actually I did a little bit of reading on statute, and since we haven't elected cemetery trustees, it really is their bailiwick. We don't really have to participate in it. So they can vote to decide to accept it. But the next steps are that either way, whether it's us or we just collaborate, is it can be a transfer to a joiner. So there's two things that are happening. One is that there's the outright donation of that
Of that
parcel
one
in the
block, yeah.
in the red, and the other is a unencumbered easement. So that, in other words, it's not just the town that would have access to that easement and when the rest of that parcel gets sold. We couldn't. The town couldn't limit the use of that to just town. So that 125-foot thing would also, whoever subdivides or buys the rest of that parcel would have use of that piece of land.
Because it's only providing the buffer.
It's an easement. It's not an outright grant of the
Yeah.
land, and it's not an exclusive easement for just the town. So in other words, when that parcel goes in for approval for subdivision, assuming they're going to make more
That
than
goes with it.
that goes
with the
with it
easement.
with the easement.
And
yeah,
but so the road would not be located if there was a road in the future.
that would be where the road would go. A road could go there. It doesn't have to go there. It's just saying that the town has the right to use that. So if for some reason the town wanted to build that road first to access the cemetery, we would be able to do that.
So whoever owns the property, because there's that easement there are certain restrictions. They wouldn't be able to build on it or
No, right,
do
they wouldn't be
something.
able to
Right.
build on it, right.
Because
right.
the easement's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the easiest thing to do is to go through to meet the requirements for transfer for a joiner is to just have to go through sketch plan, which means that we don't have to get a survey. We just have to have a description. I think the map that Mitch drew is sufficient, and that I think that's
Mitch sent an email today about two options.
Right.
Did you see that?
yeah. That's what I'm
That's what you're
referencing.
talking about.
Is that the other is if we for some reason wanted to go through the paying for a survey and all of that, then it would be a more lengthy process. But since there's no intention to develop it at this
Anything
point,
right away, right.
so that means that if and when the cemetery was going to choose to develop that portion in red, which seems relatively unlikely because most of it is wetland.
Yeah.
But there is a little portion that possibly could be.
You know, it seems like it would be the easiest thing would be to just do it as that transfer to a joiner, go to the DRB with sketch plan, and then it would transfer. And then there's the cost of, I think, we would need to have a legal description of it. So there's the cost of drawing up the deed, which I think is something that the Quinns were looking to the town to pay for that legal expense of doing that. So I guess the question is, you know, whether it would be, it's not clear in the letter from their attorney whether they were willing to do that or not. So that might be something to write back to the attorney and say, okay, you know, the town is in agreement of wanting to move forward with this. Would you want to draft the deed language for it? And if they say yes, then
Good.
they will. Otherwise, they'll come back and say, no, we want you to do that. And we would go ahead and do that, I think.
Okay, if they say no, then should I come back to this?
No, I think you can, I mean, I think you can just work with Renee,
Yeah.
Okay.
probably, and
Yeah, we'll get an
we would get it,
estimate
Okay.
get
Understand what the cost is.
the cost of drafting the deedment, and I think, you know, it probably could come out of the cemetery fund for this. If there's a little bit of money in there to cover the cost. So,
Are there any other questions?
I'm just thinking down to 25, 30 years from now, perhaps none of us are in this room or here, and we want to move forward with expanding the cemetery. What is it that we need to think of now to make that happen? So that select board isn't saying, I wish we would have thought of it now. So I'm just trying to, because we've gotten into those kinds of situations before where we didn't follow through on something or we just forgot something.
well, I think
And what is there any?
well, I think
anything there
having the
like that?
deed will need to be
Yeah.
recorded,
Yeah.
and so it'll be in the land records.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the reasons for making sure that there was enough width in that road and for the buffer so that you could put a road in there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, you know, there are a couple of really steep parts in that section. I think I would think is that when the rest of the parcel goes in for subdivision and that applicant may want to change the alignment of that road, that it's ensured that if it goes outside of the part where the town has an easement, that the cemetery commission and or the select board participate in that DRB process to ensure that we would have an easement on whatever road went in that vicinity. So that, you know, if for some reason they wanted to put a curve in there, or there might be a spur off of it, but it goes up, you know, a little bit beyond the western boundary of
Right
that.
angle.
So that you can get in there, but it's pretty tight and it gets pretty steep there. So
I was just going to ask that. Is there room between the stream buffer and the
I think there's
steep slopes?
I think there's barely room enough. So I mean, I think it would warrant, you know, walking out there before we finalize the exact dimensions of that lot to kind of see from a common sense standpoint whether there's enough room to do that. But what I'm basically saying is that it should be recorded in our minutes for right now, and in the next year or two when that property sells, that the cemetery commission participate in the DRB hearing to assure that there's some ability to, that has to cooperate with the town in terms of providing access.
Yeah, agreed. That seems pretty key.
Yeah.
So are we looking for a motion to say move ahead?
I would make a motion that the select board concurs that this would be an asset to the cemetery commission and allow the cemetery commissioners to move ahead. But I think it is kind of, it's their
theirs, yep.
responsibility. So we can just sign off and say that we would,
You
we
okay with
concur,
that,
we would
Jen?
support it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second it.
get that, Val? Yep. All right, any more discussion? This is good. I know it's been discussed for a little while, at least a couple of years I've heard about the need to access the property up above, so.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
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 So that motion passed. Anything else on this?
I think would be nice, well, to thank the Quinns and,
Yes.
I mean, as we get through it, but
The Quinns and Polly
and-
too, in her
and-
memory, yeah.
Yep, yep.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Where to next?
I don't see Adam here yet. What we could do, the Lake Iroquois Association. What
Sounds
time do
good.
we have that scheduled, just to make sure we're not so early? that
Yes,
we're-
we don't wanna do that.
7:50, we're early.
We
We're
are kind of
early.
early.
And,
Sorry, that was quite a
yeah, wait,
tease.
no. Should we, I mean, I'm not sure that we need Maureen here to, decide whether we want to appoint her to the
'Cause she filled
agency
out the
review
application.
committee.
Filled out
She
the
did,
application.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we've done that before, so we could jump on to item 3. And that's Maureen's application for the agency review committee. Are you okay with that, if we move forward? Okay. So,
Oh, somebody just came in.
Jerry, the hour left.
we're all holding our breath. I looked at this.
That was Jerry leaving.
Oh, okay. So we have the application. I think we have only, is there now 3 or 2 members to the committee?
There's 3 currently.
There's 3 currently, so this will be a 4th, which is good.
Yeah.
And I think the committee meets 3 times a year, kind of a thing. So it's not a huge time demand, but it is an important step. And we've used the committee for 6 years or 8 years, I don't know, for a
been a
while.
while.
And I think we agree it's a good process. It gets the select board out of trying to determine which services, which of these agencies serve the town well. They have a well-defined process of evaluation and application. So I think, having a full committee to help do that and get all input from different folks would be helpful.
I would make a motion to appoint Maureen Barnard to the agency review committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion?
I would like to ask, has she been to any of your meetings? Is she?
No, but I do know her.
Okay.
And she came and spoke to me after the town meeting. She was at the town meeting when
She's coming. She thought it was tomorrow night.
Well, I would say I've served with her because Maureen's been a justice of the peace, and she has participated in those hearings. Comes to the BCA meetings, comes to the meetings when we meet for tax appeals. So she's been and comes when we have to count ballots. So I think it's she's been reliable and responsible. So
She knows what she's getting into.
she knows what she's getting into. I think it's
She's experienced.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think her, on her application, she has some familiarity with what some of the agencies do for the town. So I would.
Were you going to say something else about she came to you at the end of town meeting? It seemed like you were
and she
mid-sentence.
was very interested in what we were doing and wanted to know how she could get on the committee, so,
Yeah, sounds ideal.
yeah. And we still need one more.
Shall we defer this if she's coming?
She is coming. She said she'd be about 5 minutes.
Anyone else in the room want to apply to be on this committee? We can take care of that right now.
And you could call in if you're watching on. So, so we could. You want to table it?
Yeah, I think
All right,
maybe
we'll table it
this.
until
Yeah.
Can't really
Maureen
move
is
forward
here.
on anything though. For
What?
we
Right.
can't really move forward on anything for.
Could we move forward on the CSWD thing?
We could.
I
Yeah.
don't have any objection.
So,
All right.
yep. So this is just
Never been in this situation.
update regarding CSW. I know.
Here's your
We can twiddle our thumbs.
There's some cake there.
Never.
We can sing happy birthday.
No, we can't. So update regarding CSWD. It's well known that they moved out the DOC drop-off center while we're doing construction on the new highway garage. They've said, hey, it's our intention to return, but they do have a lot of work. For us, we're like, whoa, just come back. And in fact, they have a lot of new rules and regulations since when they first put in the drop-off center that they have to meet. And so it appears that they're going through their process of reviewing the needs of the drop-off center and the rules that are around them. And one of the rules that they have is the 100-foot setback from a potable well, and where the well was for the town garage, while it would work fine for us by having them relocate to where they're in the plans, that violates that 100-foot setback. So we've talked with them and said, we're going to have to drill a new well because of, you guys coming in. We want you to be here, but this is an added cost for us. And so they've agreed to, and there's been some discussion to provide some resources, some money toward us drilling the new well. They have a limit, which is negotiated with us, I think is it
13,450.
13,450 toward the cost of drilling the new well, and we kept waiting for them to give us the official word that they would do this. So I was able to talk with them a couple of weeks in March, and Sarah said, okay, yeah, we've already approved this in a way. There was a meeting they had, so she's given us this. I said an email saying we can go forward would be good enough, so they provided us that. So this is another step where they're demonstrating their desire to come back. So they help defer the cost of the new well. And I'm not sure if we'll continue to move forward with the MOU, but either way, they're going to have to develop a new, I'm not sure if it's a rental agreement.
Lease agreement.
It's a lease agreement. And so we'll need to do that before they move back. And they have, and I think it's public knowledge, they put in Front Porch Forum, I think, or on their website, the steps they have to do. There's like 8 steps, and they're on step 3 or 4 now. So I think Sarah's concern was they might not be able to provide all of the accommodations or options we had with their previous one, like the shed. They might not have space for. And a couple other things, but she said, they have to provide the basics, recycling, trash, composting, and she said more than likely they'll continue the seasonal, the seasonal tire, appliance, hazardous waste, and so they still have to work that out. And they'll work out the final design too. So that's sort of the update. I think the lease agreement will be one to work with. I did go over our draft MOU with her, and I don't think there were any surprises in there. So.
Yeah, just to be clear, the well that was there was right next to, it was just as you drove up to the cashier. So that well has been there the entire time they operated the drop-off center previously. So seems like it's working. They've been participating as the site has been developed with their engineer has been asking for different electrical conduits and hookups. So all indications are is that they have seen the site plan and they are working towards it.
So that's good. We did have the motion at town meeting, which we haven't followed up.
Right.
I didn't promise that I was going to write that letter, did I?
No.
No. Okay. But I got thinking of it a couple nights ago.
Yeah, but I think you did in an email convey to Sarah that we had
Yeah.
that motion.
Okay,
and
so that might be good enough.
I think it would be good for us as the select. We didn't talk about it at our last meeting,
Yeah.
but as a follow up to send a letter to the CSWD board and say that this was the, just quote the language. This was the vote that was taken under other business, and we wanted to let you know that there's strong support.
So,
I think
I can just write that up and we'll bring it to our next meeting. And if the language is good, is that all right?
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
And we can do
Okay.
that. I think they knew that.
They saw it,
in a
yeah.
front porch forum.
That's right. Yeah.
But I'd like it to be in writing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And go to their board. And
Yeah,
we're
go to their
excited
board.
about them coming.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
All right. So there's no other action. Are there any questions on?
What's the next step for the MOU?
Well, so tomorrow we'll have our construction meeting again, so we need to give them the go-ahead to either go ahead and drill the well. So we just wanted this to be in front of you guys one last time to make sure you feel like you're all in agreement that it sounds like they are committed to this and we move forward accordingly.
So I'll reach out to Sarah again and say, as time goes on, we won't need the MOU if we do all the steps in there.
Right.
But we need to start on the lease. So
Yeah.
I'll say either we keep going with this, and I'm at this point I'm not sure we want to spend any money getting more legal advice on it.
Right.
But the lease is something we'll want to work with, and there'll probably be some issues that need to be worked out, I would
Right.
guess.
I think for them, they have to go to the DRB because they chose not to participate when we did our site plan approval.
Yeah.
And we said we would help with
Support
that,
them.
support
Yeah.
that. And the other thing is that in the MOU, there was reference to the electrical work and also to the stormwater.
Right.
So I think that we do want to make sure that they are aware of the work that we've done on behalf of them for stormwater approvals.
And in the MOU, it said the cost of the stormwater permit and system should be split based on the percentage of impervious surface. So she understood that. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Okay. So now we'll go back to item 3, the interview for the Agency Review Committee. Maureen, thanks for coming.
The guest of honor seat.
Yes. And we did have some discussion about you already, and Andrea said that, you're a great volunteer and very timely, she said, that you would go to
But you
all
always
the
show up
meetings.
to the meetings.
Well, I do, but when I can, and yeah, I just kept thinking it was Tuesday night, and tonight's Monday night, so.
Surprise.
But, so we did talk about you and felt, I think it's okay for me to say, everyone felt we really appreciate you volunteering, that your opinion would be valuable to the group, that you're certainly capable of evaluating the requests that come in and have an understanding of, kind of the work they do within the town. So,
Yeah, it'd be helpful to know, who are the vulnerable people in town, and how many, these people each agency would serve.
That's one of the criteria that
Yeah.
they have, and I think the committee did a really good job initially, and probably every year look at those criteria, and having a new person there will be helpful to see if there's new ideas.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
think
good.
too.
Good.
good. Anything else?
Well, thank you for your enthusiasm and being inspired to volunteer after you heard about the committee at town meeting day. I think that's really great.
Well, Kathy told me about it and been friends with Kathy for a while, so. It's helpful when you know somebody else that's on a committee so that you don't feel naked and.
It's also a good way this is for the television audience, is that if you are new to town and you want to meet people, that's why we have a lot of committees, so mostly everybody's welcoming, and a lot of committees serve food.
The good ones.
Yeah,
Well, the good ones, oh.
yeah.
Did we already have a motion?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I was gonna
I
make one, but,
We
Andrea
did.
made one.
Okay.
Oh, you did?
We did have a motion, and then we had discussion.
Did
so-
you add to your motion the term expiring?
I did not.
Did you want to?
Yes, but somebody would tell me.
1/1/21? Is that
Okay.
what,
1/1/21.
is that what you had
Yes.
as a 3-year? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll accept that
Okay.
amendment.
As a friendly amendment?
Was it
Okay.
seconded?
Yep.
Did somebody second it? Yep.
So all those in favor of appointing Maureen to the Agency Resource Committee, say aye.
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 Aye. And
Agency
none opposed?
request
review
Agency,
committee.
what did I say?
Request
Yeah.
review committee.
Okay,
Right.
so the motion passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen.
Yes. Thank you, Kathy. All right, now we're,
I think we
Milfoil
can finally
or
go to the
resource?
Lake Iroquois
Cooking with gas, no.
Association before I make Jamie and Chris get up it one more time and
Okay.
sit down again.
so the next item on the agenda is really a discussion from the Lake Iroquois Association. We had a motion at town meeting in 2017 where the town agreed to supply funds toward
Thank you.
herbicide treatment pending state approval. And I think at this point, the state's not, officially not approved it, is that right?
So I'm Jamie Carroll, Secretary of the Lake Iroquois Association. So there was an article at town meeting that was approved by the voters. Since we were last before you, the state has given us an indication that they intend to deny the permit. They gave us the opportunity to withdraw the permit. We actually partnered with Williston on that application. That saved $500 in the process to have a municipality as an applicant. So we met with the town of Williston and discussed it with them at their select board meeting. And the Williston Select Board and the Lake Iroquois Association decided not to take any action to allow the state to proceed with the formal denial. We did meet with the DEC and had a robust discussion with them prior to that, making that decision. And frankly, we didn't get satisfactory enough answers about why they were going to deny it, and nor did we feel like the communications after withdrawing the permit would be sufficient. So we wanted to continue to the denial to understand their reasoning behind issuing the denial, since all the indications we had up to applying for the permit and once the permit was issued that it met all their criteria, and we had worked with them and been in discussions with them for years before applying for that permit. So our expectation was that it would be approved. We do have a few indications, some comments made in the process of reviewing that permit by the public have raised some concerns within the DC about their whole review process for those permits generally. So their intention is to go into rulemaking to devise a way to review those permits. Our last communication with them indicated they have a draft of those rules, but we haven't heard anything more about that. That permit application was modeled on other lakes in the state that had been using that control technique since 2000. So we were disappointed that they indicated that they're going to deny it. So that's where that herbicide permit sits.
So just to recap, the permit you expect to be denied, but it hasn't been officially denied.
Correct.
You had the option, or the town of Williston had the option to withdraw the permit, but for reasons you've chosen to keep moving forward in the hope, I guess, to get an understanding of if it's denied, why it was denied. The DEC is looking, from your indications are that they may be reviewing the process for the permit, and that potentially there might be they may change the process.
Yeah, that's a good summary. I think all of us involved with that process weren't particularly, there was room for improvement, and they anticipate that. I think a non-contentious rulemaking process can go 6 to 9 months. So we're looking at least 9 months, and I don't even think it's started yet. So it's going to be a while.
Are there other permitting that may be in this process, like permitting for other things, or is this just the process for permitting for herbicide application?
So each control technique is permitted separately. We have a 10-year, we're in the second year of it, so 8 years left on a diver-assisted suction harvesting permit, and that covers the whole lake. And we have a permit to install benthic barriers at the boat access.
Every time that there's a application of benthic barriers, you have to reapply.
Yeah.
And that a new application of benthic barriers, we'd have to reapply. So
So it's not a 10-year permit?
that's for the dash. That's for the diver
Okay.
assisted.
And it's a
10-year permit for the benthic barriers for that
Also,
location.
for that
We
one
can't put them
location.
elsewhere in the lake without a new permit.
And what are benthic barriers?
It's essentially a mat you lay down on the bottom of the lake that
Kills
kills
all the weeds,
all the weeds.
not just the milfoil.
And it's a physical barrier.
Yeah.
It's like putting black plastic on a garden.
It's very similar to that, and
Yeah.
you have to go in after a certain date to allow fish spawning in the spring, and they have to be taken out by a certain date in October, and they have to remain in place. It's very well monitored, and you have to file reports with the state at the end of each season and things.
They're weighted by rebar or some kind of a weight. We currently have one application of benthic barriers at the state fishing access to minimize the propagation of the milfoil throughout that area. So
And do you find it effective?
it kills all the fish or all the weeds, so everything, native and otherwise. At this point, it's our only, really one of our only opportunities of controlling areas that are really heavily infested.
So
You know.
last summer, I guess because of the precipitation, people said there was very little milfoil, but 2 summers ago, there was just tons of it. Did you have the benthic barriers in then?
We did install them last summer. We didn't use them in 2016.
That's what I'm talking
We
about.
did some suction harvesting in 2016.
Yeah.
We did have a plant survey conducted in the lake in September of 2017, so the end of last summer. So comparing that survey with the one done in 2014 before, they were similar techniques. The scale, the sampling distance was slightly different, so you can't compare them quite apples to apples. Well, varieties of apples to varieties of apples. And our intention is to conduct that same technique moving forward, so we will be able to compare between years, and they'll use the same sampling sites. Overall, the aquatic plants were not as numerous last summer, but milfoil was still found in a substantial number of locations. It was found in 24% of the sampling sites in the lake this past summer. Of the sampling sites of depth of water 5 meter or less, which is where the aquatic plants are in the lake, it was found in 42% of those sites. So it's still very prevalent in the lake.
Mm-hmm. But not as pervasive last summer in terms of percent of surface area.
Yeah, it certainly didn't top out and was not as dense as it had been the previous summer. So we intend to conduct another survey at the end of the summer and evaluate where things are at. We were talking about a benthic barrier permit. One thing we would like to do in partnership with the Lake Iroquois Rec District is permit some benthic barriers for use at the beach area there to improve the recreational opportunity there. So that's one thing we plan to talk about tonight.
There are several landowners around the lake that have also applied for permits and received permits to install barriers also. So in various places. I don't know as we know, we don't know who they are, but there are a number of people that have said to us that they have applied and done the barriers. The reason why we felt that this was an opportunity for Lake Iroquois Association and the Recreation District to come together and partner with the benthic barriers is that that swim area has decreased to a small area now compared to when we were all swimming there and as kids, and it used to be huge, and it's very narrow, and the weed population is significant. And so we felt that this is an opportunity for us to not only do hand pulling through the DASH program, but also to work with the Recreation District to apply these barriers. There was a significant reduction in users this past summer, and we found that the previous year's performance of the milfoil scared a lot of people away. There was a fairly foul.
Boat owners or swimmers?
No, swimmers.
Okay.
Yeah. There isn't any boat use at the.
No, I meant at the fishing access.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. At the beach.
Okay.
There was a significant foul smell through the month of August on that end of the beach, on that end of the lake, because of the stagnant water created by the milfoil. And so
last summer or the summer before?
Summer before.
Right, yeah.
And so that drove a lot of people away, talking to the beach personnel that were working at the booth. So, we found that. So if we're going to put any effort into using various techniques, then we felt that this was a good way to partner with them. And to be honest with you, with the loss of revenue that they've had just in the last year, they really don't have the money to be going out and buying barriers. So in the letter that I wrote you, and I apologize for holiday weekend, number one, number two, and I know this is no excuse. We wrote this letter to you on Thursday, and it was supposed to be included in your packet, and I dropped the ball by sending it, and it got stuck in somewhere in cyberspace. So I apologize, Renee, for that.
Maybe you could just summarize.
Yeah, so the upper paragraph basically.
And so this is sort of why you guys are coming. Okay.
This is why we're here.
So, yeah.
The upper half of the letter basically tells us where we've been for the last 3-4 years. It also identifies the Article 10 that was presented at the 2017 town meeting. We are looking at hiring the diver-assisted suction harvesting team to come to the lake. We have given them a verbal commitment of 4 weeks, 3 weeks initially, and then 1 week as a follow-up. And you'll see on the second page how much that costs. It's about $5,500 a week for us to have them working on the lake. They then will be given the opportunity to work for private landowners surrounding the lake also during that, not during this time, but after that time. The Lake Champlain Basin Program has been generous to give us $15,000 for the DASH program, which is a great opportunity for us. We are also looking at leveraging our money, both on the money that we fundraised and hopefully money that we would receive from the communities to add to that, because the $15,000 is not enough to really do a whole lot. And so we feel that if we're going to be working on the beach and other areas, that we need a fair amount of money to do so. We, in addition to developing the DASH program and the Bensick Barrier program, once again, for how many years have we done the greeter program? We're on our
8 or 9, I think.
8 or 9 years. We're going to expand the greeter program at the state fishing access, where we're going to extend the hours. And we've explained to you about adding the hot water boat wash station, so it's taking more time for training. All of our personnel, these are paid individuals that we're paying. We've hired also a coordinator to make sure the training is properly done and to check in on a daily basis to make sure that everything is working the way that we should. We had an incident last year where one of the individuals ran to the store, was gone for a half hour, left the machine out, just simply, didn't really use common sense and left all of our equipment out. And, people were coming and going, and all of a sudden one of our board members was like, where's our personnel? We just kind of need to have better control on what we're doing with our personnel. And so we've hired a coordinator to help with that and to oversee them on a daily basis. And we're looking to ask the town for an additional $2,500 for the greeter program that we can add to the money that we have allocated for that program. We have a lot of other different projects going on. I think probably one of our biggest projects is that we have a board member, Shannon Kelly, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, that is working on a 5-year management plan for the lake on water quality. And that's something that the state has recommended that we develop. And we feel as a board that it's really important that we develop that 5-year management plan. So Shannon's initiating that with fellow board members and also state representatives. So do you want to just explain the DASH and how?
Sure. So town meeting 2017, $30,000 was appropriated, and to date we haven't used any of those funds. So our intention was for this summer to ask for $5,000 to be allocated from that funding towards DASH near the beach, as well as Bensick Barriers near the beach. The town of Williston has allocated some funds for us. Our intention is to go to them and ask for $5,000 from those funds. So $10,000 towards that effort. It'd be broken out to 1 week of DASH, and then a purchase of about 12 of the bottom blankets to install it at that location. We would hold the permit along with the LRD Beach for those mats to install and assist the beach with the removal and installation of those. So that's the $5,000, and then the $2,500 towards the greeter program. We did get a grant and aid through the state to fund the greeter program. Chris mentioned that we want to increase that. We asked for $20,000 from the state for the budget for all the staff for that. We received $13,481. This year, the grant and aid is 100% match, so that either from the association or towns, we have to match that 100% either with actual dollars or in-kind labor. There is quite a bit of volunteer labor that goes into overseeing that, so that $2,500 would be used towards the greeter program. So that's what we're here to ask for.
We also use volunteers for the installation of the mats, the Bensick barriers. So we would love to see anybody volunteer for that. That's not as pleasant as it
do that in the
seems.
winter,
It
right?
just doesn't float in and drop where it's supposed to. So, we with 12 mats just to go in a new location, it's going to take some time and effort. So, and the beach, the committee, we have the LIRD committee is currently 3 members. Richmond has not appointed a member for a couple of years. So we're looking to try to get Richmond to put a member out there. And so we're excited about working with the LIRD. I think I've shared that with you before. I think it's an effort that they need help, and we're very willing to work with them on it. So lots going on, lots of information on our website. If you wanted to go to the, it spells in the second page, spells out the plant survey is there. The aquatic plant survey is on our website and can be accessed online. Great information there. That's a great document that we have available.
I think we'll open it up to the select board to ask questions, and then anybody in the audience too. So just to rehash, we did have this Article 10. The town put 30,000, but where it wasn't
5,000 is part of your normal annual allocation, so,
and that hasn't been used at all.
right.
Okay, so it was, I think, just to clarify, at least from our point of view, there was 30, 25 was for the potential herbicide, and 5 we normally donate, the town normally puts forward. But that hasn't been used because the permit never came through. Any discussion or questions?
Well, I guess I'd like to understand the budget a little bit, because you're asking for 5,000 for the diver-assisted suction near the beach.
And
Purchase, so that
Benthic.
but then it looks like the dash cost is $5,500 per week, and then the blanket subtotal is $4,019. So in actuality, you're looking for closer to $10,000.
Yeah, our intention is to ask Williston for
Yeah, we're
5
not
as
So
well.
we're
So
each putting in 5.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then on the greeter program, you had requested 20,000 from
State.
the state, and but they gave you 13,481, and so again, are we making up with 2,500 half of that, and you're going to get the other half from Williston?
Exactly.
Okay. Just make, I certainly support the greeter program. I think it's unfortunate that we don't have it, that it's not mandated that the boat washing happen.
It is actually. They passed a law last
did?
year that went into effect July 1st.
Oh, okay.
So if a boat wash station is manned, it's required to be used by the boater.
And how does the person who's having to tell a boat owner who doesn't want to do it have the ability to enforce that?
We've had discussions with DC about that, and that wasn't really enforced after July 1st last
Right.
summer while DEC worked around laws. Our position on that is that a greeter is not a law enforcement
Right.
official, and we've actually had the game wardens came to a board meeting and discussed that with us and with the greeters. So they're not going to take law enforcement action.
Right.
They're going to inform the user about the statutes and,
The greeter is,
yeah.
yeah.
I would think
But
that-
can they
Yeah, it's
also
not
take the
our-
license of the
Yeah,
boat
record
or
it.
something?
Yes,
I
and
mean,
the wardens were
okay.
open to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the wardens were open to
Calling them.
We have their numbers
Okay.
posted
Okay.
in
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
in the,
Yeah, okay.
I mean, was that a big issue or just a couple of people?
I don't think our greeters had any issues with
Yeah.
folks
Okay.
agreeing to use it, and they run through an algorithm. If the last lake or water body it was used in was Lake Iroquois, you don't need to wash going back into Lake Iroquois. And if you're going from Lake Iroquois to Lake Champlain, there's no reason to wash. But if you're coming from a lake without something, or you're
Right.
coming from Lake Champlain that has a bunch of species, you need to be cleaned on the way in. And if you're going to a lake without milfoil, for example, you need to be washed on the way out. So there's this discussion with users, and often a lot of the users are transient
Back
to
and
and from
forth,
Lake Iroquois, so they're not every boat is washed.
And our intention is to wash all vessels, not just motorboats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it's worth washing them even because they could be spreading it within the lake.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah, okay.
So the total you're asking for is $7,500?
$7,500.
Correct.
Yes.
So it'd basically be 2,500 of the funds that you received last year. Because you had the 5,000, which
Right,
really we
still
didn't
have
give you
the
any
5,000.
restrictions on. The 25,000, we kind of said,
Yeah.
we're looking for the sonar.
Yeah.
Well, the article didn't
It didn't
differentiate.
differentiate.
Right.
It didn't, but I'm,
But yeah. That
You
was- I-
wrote it, so.
Yeah. and I think I'm the one who brought it up that said, geez, if it's not used for that, it seems like there was just all the discussion was associated around that.
Yeah.
But, I'm open to discussion. Does anybody else have anything to add?
I just
ahead,
want to
sorry.
thank you for working with these physical barriers. I think people are a lot more comfortable with that than putting toxins in that, may be proved. But in our culture at this time, there are so many things that have been proved that then they turn out and say, whoops, we didn't realize that this was one of the results. So, but with the physical barrier, it's much safer.
Yes?
Yes, I'd also like to ask a one question or two, but really I'd like to thank you for the work that you do. You may not think that it's not well appreciated, it is.
Thank you.
I'm a little curious as to the extension of your last plant survey to Lake Sunset. Now, I don't know how that works. I mean, you're kind of going out of your area into Lake Sunset. I'm not sure, really totally devoid of the thinking process on that. Maybe you guys can explain a little bit.
And Nate, could you just say who you are, just so we...
Yes, Roger Donegan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Roger, our intention is to, given the limited time, our intention is to eventually work with Lake Sunset landowners to help deal with both milfoil problems in both bodies of water. And we had a gathering last summer, an open public gathering at the lake, and there were 2 residents that had come on to this public gathering, and they showed interest in working with us. And so we're, I think it's our interest to build that relationship, and that's where we're at right now. So it's nothing more than just building great neighbors, that's all.
So are they members of the Lake Iroquois?
Not our association, no.
No, I see.
No. So actually, we had.
It sounds complicated.
I don't think it's as complicated as it sounds. No, I think it's just shows intention. That's all. And our intention is to work with whoever. As we have in this process, we've been working There's 14 board members. I'm gonna turn it out. Excuse me. There's 14 board members on our board, and we got there's a lot going on, and water quality is our main, our only objection, and it really we spend an awful lot of time, just like you do as volunteers, but it's great the amount of work that's gone into this over the last 10, 15 years, 10 years. is significant. And I think that this, working with LIRD and also working with our neighbors to our south, is a great opportunity. So I think we'd be short-sighted if we didn't include them as we work through this process. So, thank you for your comment, though, Roger.
So I think the board typically likes to not make decisions on the same night, or given information. Do you have a timing here that, obviously sooner than later, but is there some deadline, or when are you going to go to Williston?
Hopefully within the next 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, during the month of April is our intention. So we've made a verbal commitment to the greeter program coordinator.
Okay.
Based on, financial. We're being very fiscally responsible. But we're also, we need to, number one, give a deposit for the dash, which we, the association can do without a problem. But we also need to buy the barriers, work through the permit process with the fencing barriers also, work with LARD. We've gotten the verbal commitment to be able to join hands with them. So that's a lot of work. So we're working hard to do it. So
I'll throw in my 2 cents.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the benthic barrier addition that you have planned. The dash, I'm a little bit skeptical of, to be honest with you, because I've seen it done for 30 some odd years on the lake, and it just seems like you're throwing good money after bad. Because I just think that the effect is very limited overall. I mean, you're going to suck some weeds out of there, but really the effect for the amount of money that you're spending just seems negligible to me. So
we've stood here at this meeting before and told you that we don't feel it's in our best interest to use the money, but our hands are tied. We've got to do something.
Right.
And benthic barriers are not the answer totally because of the population of native plants that we've learned a lot about that process, and we I don't think that that's a total answer. So
no, I agree. But in terms of the beach area, that'll certainly be an improvement.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, you haven't been turned down officially for the permit yet. And I think a lot of people did support it. It might be not the PC opinion, but I think I've heard of it used in other lakes, and the results have been tremendous. They've returned the lakes. So I hope you don't give up on that, because you haven't been turned down yet.
There were very strong indications that they intended to deny this permit.
But you wouldn't be here.
I wouldn't be
asking for this,
Yeah.
but go ahead.
I guess, as Phil mentioned, is that we like to hear a proposal and think on it. And I certainly would really want to be able to read the denial and understand the denial before we move ahead. And also, so what's the permit process that you have to go through for the how long is that? Have you already applied for the dash and for the benthic mats at the beach?
We have a dash permit that allows us to
Okay.
use dash anywhere in the lake.
Okay.
We have not applied for the benthic barriers permit. I have it drafted,
Okay.
and that process is much shorter.
Okay.
They have up to 90 days to approve that. They typically do that in a month or two. So there's plenty of time to do that for this summer.
Okay.
And to address your question about reading the reasoning behind the denial, you could wait for months like we have, though we have yet to be denied.
Right, I understand
So
that, yeah.
so if we wait to make the decisions on these practices, we may miss the opportunity. That's all.
And there's nothing in statute that says they have to give you an answer by a certain date?
Unfortunately not. The DEC guideline is 180 days. So we
It's been
applied
way
for that
over 180
permit in
days.
November of
Yeah.
2016. So
Yeah.
The last time I counted was 463 days, but that was over a month ago. I did take a look at Article 2, which was for the town garage. You folks applied for that Act 250 permit 5 months after that article was approved, and were issued it, 2.5 months later. So that was a timely action. Unfortunately, ours was not.
Yeah. That's it, yeah. Just that you have to identify yourself, yeah.
My name's Elizabeth Deutsch. So there were a couple of comments that you made that I would like some clarification on. You said that the size of the swimming area since the time that you were a child until you were an adult has shrunk. Is that a subjective or an objective finding? And do you have a size of that? And what percentage it's been decreased by over the years?
I would say, Elizabeth, that probably has reduced in half since I was a kid.
Right, but was it, do we have an indication of, was it ever measured?
I don't.
Instead of the perception of a child versus an adult, because we all know that things seemed huge as children that are not now.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering.
I'm 60 years old, and I've spent my entire life right there on that. So I watched that.
So I am not questioning, I'm asking for the data. I just want the data, sir.
Yeah.
It's not a
Elizabeth,
personal
I
thing.
looked at Google Earth, and I did measure the swimming area.
Okay.
I don't know how to measure the aerial dimension of a 7-sided polygon. And the Google Earth map going backward didn't have sufficient resolution to measure the swimming area. But the public beach is about 120 feet wide. There's an area that goes in front of the beach building there that's about 35 feet long. And I would say it roughly extends about 150 feet up from the beach.
And how is that different from 50 years ago?
Significantly less, I'd say.
But, so,
I'm just.
right now, I'm just asking for subjective data instead of objective opinion. That's.
Yeah, okay, so I can't give you that.
Other way around,
I
sorry.
can't give you that, so I don't
Okay,
think.
and then-
Opinion.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
and
my
then-
opinion.
Okay.
There used to be a raft out
Was it-
there, and the raft out there was way out, and as a 15-year-old, it was quite a ways to swim out to it. Today, you could walk out to your chest to the buoys. So there's quite a difference between walking out and swimming out. It's considerably less, that's all. I guess I'm speculating
Okay,
by
and then
saying
the other
that.
thing, you said that you were surveying people about their use of the beach. And as we know, we've talked multiple different times about the fact that 2 years ago we had a drought and it was warm and hot and dry. And then last year was a very rainy season. Is it possible that perhaps the reason why less people were using the beach was because it was pouring rain all the time? The same reason why we have less milfoil is because we had more rain and the lake level was higher? And so did we actually do a survey of people, as you said, or did you kind of just talk to folks as they came and went?
I didn't. I talked to the people in the booth that,
So it was their perception,
Communicate.
we didn't actually survey people as to their use of and why we had more one year versus another, which could have been totally dependent on the weather as opposed to
but it also.
actually the milfoil.
Yeah, it probably was the smell, actually. The smell of the water, in the area, the algae.
Okay.
I would,
So
I would say.
we did not actually it was a completely.
It wasn't a written survey, if that's what you're
Or-
asking, or I didn't stand at the booth and, question people as they went.
Okay.
I was speaking only to the people that were working at the booth.
And that was their perception of.
Yeah, that was.
So we don't actually know for sure whether or not there was a decrease in usage based on
and you-
milfoil.
There was a
But on,
Raising the
but on,
income
but
in
on
town.
Yeah.
revenue, significant decrease in use.
Right, but that could have just been from the weather and not from,
Yeah.
I mean, if we're throwing out subjective ideas, we
Yeah.
can throw out any,
Yeah,
you
it's all practical information, that's all. All I'm doing is sharing practical information, but thanks for raising those issues.
Yes.
So when we voted on this at town meeting, I remember it was a very close vote, but we did agree as a town to give Lake Iroquois Association, I'm looking for it, I know it's here somewhere.
It's right on that.
Yeah, it's $30,000 for the purpose of funding the milfoil mitigation and removal efforts in Lake Iroquois to be managed by the Lake Iroquois Association. If approved, the voters will be funding 1 year of the 5-year effort led by the Lake Iroquois Association. So this is something that's already been decided, and you're just giving us information. So I don't know why we have to wait a week or two and think about this. This is a decision that the town made.
Right, and I had said, in my opinion, I was there was a lot of discussion on this. It was a hot topic, and the discussion wasn't on the DASH program or the benthic barriers. It was for the herbicide. And so I think if the Lake Iroquois Association was coming here and saying, can we have our $30,000 to put benthic barriers down, I think I would say, boy, I'd like to get a legal opinion as to whether that meets the needs. But, that's my opinion, I think. But I think the $5,000 certainly was always a donation toward the Lake Iroquois Association, and they haven't come for that full amount. So I think it's certainly a discussion point, and that would be a reason we would hold off before we make a decision to really make sure we get clarification on it. I think it probably be all right, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, and also, in the minutes that we approved, related, it says, Jamie Carroll of the Lake Iroquois Association gave some history and background information related to the plans for chemical treatment of the lake for milfoil mitigation. So, that's what's recorded in the minutes. And I think just from a process standpoint of what we agreed to when we had our board meeting was that we would hear a presentation, think about it for a week, and then come back the next week. So yes, I agree with Marilee. Yes, there was a lot of discussion there, but this is the first time it's on the agenda. And I think giving an opportunity to the public, the letter that they submitted was not in the Dropbox. So just from a process of how we as a board agreed to act, I think holding off until our next meeting would be appropriate for following what we.
And we're fine with it. We understand that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marilee.
Yeah, I agree with what I said before.
It is, we understand that you have a process, and we do appreciate that, and we plan on coming back when Renee lets us know.
Do you have any, are you okay?
As I understand it, there's only 3 ways to deal with this. Either the herbicide, mats, or pulling it out by hand. Is there another way? We know?
Nothing.
Do nothing.
No, I'm saying to deal with it. Yeah.
You can drain the lake.
Yeah, so there are probably lots of
There's
ways,
lots of
just
ways
have
to
to
deal
be.
with
thinking
So I guess that's what I'm
outside the
asking.
We
What are
can't
some-
drain the lake because the
I,
state
I'm
doesn't
not.
allow
I'm not
it.
asking that. Right. That's an extreme, obviously, but I suppose to my question. So practically, what are the ways that we have that we haven't explored, or that we've dismissed as not practical, like draining the lake?
One would be harvesting. So a large mechanical device that harvests the weeds. It's akin to mowing your lawn. So
That was done for years on the lake.
And chops up
Right.
and propagates and
Spreads it,
Spreads.
doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. There's also an opportunity of using carp. There's also an opportunity of using weevils. We've explored all of those. I
Natural
don't think you want to
predators,
see
yeah.
carp in Lake Iroquois or any body of water in the state. As a matter of fact, it's illegal, but we've explored it. The weevils don't work. They don't seem to survive the winter. We've tried that.
They go in and eat the
Yeah,
plants.
They're a natural predator
Yeah.
where the weeds came from.
Yeah.
exactly.
But that, we've tried that, and that was one of the first actions that we took several years ago, a decade ago.
Worked for a summer and then they die in the winter and
Yeah,
they don't come back.
didn't survive. And you couldn't come up with enough weevils to deal with the issue. So especially now that we have the population that we do of the milfoil. So
All right, is there any
So-
more questions? comments? So I think we'll hold off, probably put it on the next agenda. Look, yeah, and, you know, we look for the public to provide some input. And I say I appreciate the hard work you guys do for the association. You've been coming here for quite a while, and I know there's this one's a sticky issue, but certainly the lake, the water quality, some of the actions that have been taken, are very helpful, and it's a great resource for the
And as Andrea said
community.
several times tonight, we're always looking for people to join us, so don't be afraid to let us know. Lake Iroquois Association is always willing to have volunteers, so
And the town's been a great partner as well. I mean,
very much so.
your work with your time here at each of these evenings, as well as the town road crews, donation of time in kind to some of our grants has been key in getting those
And your
projects
fire
through
department,
completion.
and we
Yeah, and the fire
appreciate
department,
that very much. So we do appreciate the time that you all have put into this. I know you're probably sick of seeing us come back time after time, but it's been quite a process, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, when the state does issue their decision, do you know who it will be sent to?
Well, I think part of the delay is that the gentleman who reviews these permits at the state, his intention is to write back an individual letter to each person that wrote a comment. So it sounded like he had drafted a kind of blanket denial to go along if we withdrew the permit. And he was a little disappointed when we decided not to withdraw the permit because he was going to have to. So he's going to
Address every comment that was made at the public hearing.
Yep.
And after,
Yeah,
there's been
what was submitted, yeah. Okay.
And I think
So in essence, the reason for denial will go to everybody who submitted comments, but will it be the entire document everybody will get, or do you know if just that he will respond to? I mean, some of those questions are pretty similar, so it seems like he could write a response to address a bunch of similar comments, but okay.
I can't speak to that.
yeah.
We'll do the best we can to publicize things, through our mailing list, certainly get it to the town and.
Well, I think that certainly was disappointing in the process that the town itself was not notified about the permit, and that it went to Williston, and then the posting requirements. I mean, I think there really are a lot of things that did get pointed out in the comment period that were deficiencies in the process that the DEC had. So it's unfortunate, or I don't know whether it's unfortunate. You guys were the guinea pigs where that happened.
Yeah.
So, and I hope it does clear up. And really, my contention is that these are water bodies of the state. The state should be responsible for doing this. It's a burden to put it on volunteer organizations. It's a huge amount of responsibility, and I would much rather and financial, and legal responsibility. And I really think it would be better if the state acknowledged their responsibility to do this.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Once again, appreciate your time.
April 16th, just like that.
Yeah, we already have. If it changes, just let us know.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right, so then now we're jumping back to item 5. Says request from CVU for a school resource officer. So this is the first the board discusses this, and who's coming up? Adam? More than one. We have plenty of seats here. Maybe just identify yourself. So.
I'm Adam Bunting, principal of Seaview High School. My apologies, I had the original 8 o'clock time in my calendar, so. The Chief's probably pretty happy with me right now, so.
Okay, thank you. You'll have to stay over a little bit.
Yeah.
Attention after the meeting.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm on it. So do you want me to go first, or?
Part of why we're here is if the school board decides that they want an SRO, what I really don't want is any surprises to the select board. Because the way, if they ask for an SRO, that's an additional position to the department. Because we don't, our current staffing, you couldn't put a full-time SRO.
Can I just ask a question?
Certainly.
Why would, if CVU wants an SRO, why does it become Hinesburg's responsibility to provide it?
We're not finished talking.
Okay, okay.
Define what an SRO is.
Yeah.
A school resource officer,
Okay.
and it would be somebody who would be dedicated. Part of the reason why we would be providing it is because CVU is in our town. All the resources to back that officer up would be coming out of our town, so that would be my recommendation. An SRO, and part of the reason why I prepared this is, even though it's a new hire to this department, we don't pay the full amount, but what I would be asking is those times when they're not at CVU and not being paid for, then yeah, that's an additional amount to the town. The numbers that I did up there, there's approximately 180 school days, so that would be the minimum amount of time that the officer would be spending up at CVU. That works out to be approximately 70% of a school year. So just based on hypothetical $25 an hour salary, which is just above our top step officer, and those kind of numbers, what we're talking about is essentially $43.44 an hour, and then times the amount of time. One of the decisions that the school board would be making is, number one, if they want an SRO. The second part of that is there's some schools that keep the SRO all year. Even when there's not students there, usually, particularly a school like CVU, has always got something going on. Mm-hmm. So that would be a matter of somewhere, higher than maybe 180 days, up to including the full year, in which case there really wouldn't be any cost at all borne by the town. But part of what I wanted to do with you is just to let you know kind of this would be the cost. If they ask for an SRO, and it's a Hinesburg officer, then it would raise our essentially $27,800 would be the cost borne by Hinesburg.
Would that be a cost shared across the board?
No, that's ours, because when that officer is not up there, that officer's in Hinesburg.
But what if that officer stayed with the school for the whole 365 days?
But see, that's a decision they make, and in which case, yeah, there is no cost. Yeah. And the cost to the school board would be approximately $90,355, and we would just handle the administrative part, the training and all of that for the officer.
That's an expense.
You're right, I didn't do vehicles, uniforms, et cetera. So the thing is if they come back, and what I wanted to do is just give you an approximate. Mm-hmm. This is approximately what we're looking for. You're right, this doesn't include vacations, because an officer gets X amount of days a year vacation, that would be shared. So there's a lot of little numbers that we could be adding into here, but what I wanted to do is just essentially, this is down and dirty, it would be no less than 27,000, or actually it could be a little bit based on what else we had. So right now, this is kind of totally in the school board on if they decide they want an SRO.
I imagine there must be standards for an SRO. Is that just a term, or is that, if you look it up, an SRO, has this level of training and whatnot?
Well, although there is no precise definition of an SRO, there are common practices. Yeah, it's all there. Yeah.
The thing is, you have to be a police officer, and that's step one. You have to be a trained police officer.
Well, I don't mean to.
Oh, no.
I just, I suppose the school could they could assign a teacher to watch over things. I mean,
No, you wouldn't want to do that. So I'm
not saying we want to do it, but I'm just sort of saying, is it always a police? If I go to all the schools around, all over the place and say who's in charge of safety.
Right.
Is it always a
Well,
police
see,
officer?
that's where Joy did a lot of research. She went to a lot of schools. She's pretty knowledgeable on the different types of stuff that's out there.
So what'd you
The
find?
only school that I found that does not have a police officer that's presently a police officer is Essex. It's a retired police officer, hence they do not have a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
This is in Vermont.
This is,
These are-
yes,
yeah, okay.
I stayed in Vermont,
Yeah.
in my phone calls. But everyone else that has a school resource officer, they have a
It's
gun.
and is it considered an active police officer? So they're
Yeah.
constantly getting, just like any officer
Right.
would get regular training.
They'd
you
have to
know.
have the 24 hours
Yeah.
a year of that training. We'd have to make a decision on what medical,
They wear a
Yeah.
full uniform.
that's negotiable.
Okay. Bulletproof vest.
Yes.
Because all police officers do, or is it because
No,
Hinesburg's?
because that's what we require,
Yeah,
and most
okay.
departments do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had a chance to think about the why of it all. Has the board had that discussion?
No, this is the first time.
So I just offer a short commentary.
Yeah.
So my history with CVU goes back a long time to 1990 when I was a student there, and I'm fiercely proud of the school. And for a long time, I believed that CVU did not need a school resource officer, despite being the largest school in the state. We've always had, I think, we've enjoyed a great relationship with Hinesburg PD, and one that I think's developed even more so over the past few years. But I had the experience of going from being an assistant principal at CVU and then going to Montpelier, where I was the principal there. And what I noticed surprised me, and that there was a distinct difference between how CVU students viewed law enforcement and viewed their connection with the city in Montpelier than did CVU. So in Montpelier, we had a school resource officer who worked with the elementary and middle school and the high school and developed relationships with families, with the community. That person became a part of our kind of internal school leadership team. And what I found was that our access to external resources and connections for our kids who really need it were really strengthened. I mean, that school resource officer had connections that we didn't know about, and we had connections they didn't necessarily know about. And if a student made a mistake in Montpelier, they weren't surprised when the police were called in, because I think they really saw themselves as, they're like, oh, of course, we're one city, one town, one community. That was a distinct difference from CVU, and I think part of it was on CVU. I think there was a time where we just felt like we were going to handle everything internally, but I also think I sometimes can imagine CVU as like this large spaceship that's descended in the hills of Hinesburg, where you've got 1,300 kids coming every day, and sometimes I worry that they don't develop that same community connection that my students in Montpelier had. There are times when families are surprised if there's an infraction and we're working with local law enforcement, and I just don't always see that our students are making that connection that, yeah, you are, whether you're from Williston.
Is part of the community.
Yeah, you're a part of the community, like we're neighbors, like, and the kids that are coming through school are your future neighbors. So to me, the real power of the school resource officer is, it helps create that bridge, and it's only it's a part of it. It's not the whole thing. But I know right now everyone's thinking about school resource officers in terms of who's there in case the big tragedy happens, or someone really nefarious comes into the building. To me, it's much bigger than that, and I think it fits particularly with Hinesburg communities, the community policing approach. It's about relationships, it's about education, and it's really about educating kids. So we're not just seeing someone there who's got a firearm. It's someone who's there who's actually helping teach kids and make connections and using them in really creative ways. So we love to partner with Hinesburg. I'm in a place where I feel like I have to ask myself, if something were to happen, did we as a school take all of the necessary steps to have, reasonable safety for all of our students? And at this point, being the only school in the state without a resource officer, I think that's a problem. I would also say we only have one social worker at our school. If you compare it to Essex has 4, South Burlington has 4. And I actually think that, I'm not deriding other schools, I think that speaks well of the relationships that CVU builds with its students. But I also think we're in a time where we need more resource than we've needed in the past. So that to me goes back to the why, and that also goes back to why I'd love to partner with Hinesburg, just because I have a lot of respect for Chief and just the beliefs and the philosophy. So I guess that wasn't a very short commentary. I apologize.
It's very helpful, yeah.
I think if you do research on the SRO position, it really is, like Adam spoke to, about the relationships that they build. And you'll find that, it's the person is more about the success. The type of individual that they hire is, tends to lead towards the success of the program.
Yeah, that's kind of, that goes a little bit, when I'm hearing about relationship, I think I really support that, and I think what's really hard is that it ends up that Hinesburg is the bad guys, because so many of the kids come from Williston and Shelburne, where there are police departments there, and we're the Frank's department is the ones who end up stopping them in Hinesburg for speeding. I don't know what kind of support there are in Shelburne and Williston as kids are driving, but it a little bit makes it feel like we end up being the bad cops.
That's not the narrative I hear, just to let you know.
Okay.
By the way,
Okay. And that it would be impractical to have all 3 departments share in it, because it is about a relationship of a person. Right. But what I also hear is that I think so much of what policing is today is social work. Yeah, and so in my mind, that is the skills and tasks and experience that I would want to see developed not only in the SRO, but in our community as well. And that the kind of training that and support that we give is those are the needed types of relationships. So, I don't know how you fulfill that SRO in terms of the usefulness to the community at large, Hinesburg community at large, and CVU in specific. But that to me seems like a really important resource for us to have available in our community at large. So, and the other thing on this thing is, like, I don't quite get how it's 260 days, because there's 365 days in a year, and 180 is about half.
2080 is the work.
I get it,
number of hours
but
and
we're still
divided
paying
by 8.
for
Right.
the vacations and stuff.
Right.
So, yeah.
180 student days.
Yeah, I understand that, but still, if we're thinking about a full year employment, I think we need to consider what vacation time and all that stuff in it. That's all. Just a accounting question.
Yes, Marilyn?
So I'd like to talk about the finances. We just mentioned in the select board and didn't really, I think it just came up as an occasional comment that is it a cost that we are providing the police support without the resource officer for CVU, and should other towns contribute? And as I recall in the past, Frank, when this has come up, maybe at town meeting, you've said it doesn't really add to the expenditure.
The problem is years and years ago, we tried to figure out, like, we charged St. George for their fire based on calls and all of that. You can actually do the math and figure out that it's a definitive, this is how much it cost. When we were trying to do that with CVU based on, okay, this percentage of calls based on the overall and all of that, I think we came up with like a 17% or something like that. But to me, it wasn't as clean as our fire contract. And like it, well, I don't say like it or not, CVU is in our town. And whenever you look any place where there's a high school in a town, even if it's a union high school, the basic policing belongs to that town. I don't know anywhere where their share, it's just the cost of doing business. But the SRO is obviously a different role. That officer is dedicated to, the time when they're up at CVU.
I'm not suggesting that other towns contribute to the policing. I'm suggesting that they pay a percentage of what our police department costs. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how often you have to go there. You're a presence, and you're a presence for CVU. You're there in case something happens at CVU. I think that the other towns should pay something
You mean
for
just
that.
without, irrespective of the SRO?
Irrespective of the SRO
Right.
and irrespective of if you ever had to go there.
No, like I said, we tried to come up with something in the past, and this had to be a way now, because I'm not even sure if I was chief when we did this.
So another way to ask it maybe is if Hinesburg says, absolutely not, we're not going to do this, and the school says, absolutely, we are going to do this, and they go ahead and do this, and they fund it somehow, where does that money come from? Might be a way to ask that.
Would come out of the CVU budget, which
Ultimately, but that's my point. That's my point. It would come out of the CVU budget. So is what you're asking is let's have some of this funding come out of the CVU budget, so the cost is spread amongst the district.
I mean, that's what the
But maybe-
proposal is, that the funding for the
Well,
officer,
this is just-
what percentage is up, up in the air in the
But
proposal.
it's a percent, this is just looking at the officer
Right.
itself, as
Right.
opposed to more broadly that our whole department is responsible for coverage at CVU, not just that one officer. So it's looking at it, I think, a little bit more holistically, because if the officer is there, who's the support that's going to come there? It's our whole department's there. So I think I'd like to just tease out how we would evaluate the budget for this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and I wouldn't,
Yeah.
like I say, I don't think it needs to be how often you go there. If you hire a babysitter and say it's a college student, I don't know what the going rate is, but say you give them $15 an hour because they're really responsible and the kids are asleep the whole time, they don't do anything. It's still worth it, because as a parent, you're totally relaxed knowing that somebody really good is on call and ready.
But see, we came up with the same thing when we were looking at this, that, okay, CVU, I'm not even sure if they were number one in calls. I'm trying to come up with, like Jiffy Mart and places like that. I think that part of our discussion was, is it fair to treat CVU differently than when we would any other business that we protect in the town of Hinesburg? And I think that was another one of those, like I said, I got to be honest with you, I would be happy if they pay for the calls, the alarm calls, because it cost us $33 every time the alarm goes off at CVU, and dispatch calls us and tells us it's $33 every single time that happens. That's a definitive cost. It cost me $33, well, it cost us $33 every time that happens. But if you just try to do the value of us going up there, not only would it be difficult, I don't know if it's fair. Just because CVU happens to be in our town, that's just a fact of life, like it is in other towns too. Virginia's high school, I believe, is a regional or a union high school, and Virginia's PD goes to them, and I'm pretty sure that there's no charge or whatever. And I don't know if Virginia's High has a SRO.
Well, every high school, you said, does in Vermont.
That's not true. Every
Oh.
high school does not.
The larger ones, just saying.
The larger ones do, but there are some that have had them and got rid of them, and some that don't feel that they need them.
does U32?
Yes.
Because that's a regional that comes from a.
Yeah, I did try hard to figure out what other communities are similar.
Yeah.
And we're pretty unique.
Yes, we are.
There's no doubt.
I will say, Frank, to your point, and I'm in support of an SRO officer. I mean, somebody could live in Hinesburg for 25 years and never call the police. So I don't really see this as any different. It may not be fair, but to Mayor Lee's point, the protection is there. People know it's there. And the only part I'm having a hard time stomaching is that extra 28 grand for the town of Hinesburg, because that's the part I have.
The only difference is unlike a teacher who goes home for the summer, a police officer's on year-round.
Right.
So I think that just depends on what CVU, and just because it's only 180 student days, they may contract for another 20 days or whatever. That's the decision that will come out of the school board as part two, if they decide they want one. That's when this body makes a decision on, yes, we support it, or no, we don't. And if we don't, then that's the decision that's been made.
Colleen, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I'll try to narrow my scope. So the board's role in this, we have not yet had this discussion, although we know that our administrators are wrestling with how we approach this new way of working with our students in the schools, access to the buildings and the community and so forth. It's a whole new world than it was 10 years ago. We all know that. The state, we know that there's SRO money that might be made available, but again, our board hasn't talked about this. I think it would be helpful to keep the discussion focused on this particular issue, and Adam and Frank talking about what that might be. And I know Adam would be working with superintendent and other administrators within the district to help shape what the needs of an SRO would be, because they do, as Joy found out, they do vary from place to place, and Adam has a good vision of what he thinks needs to happen. I also just want to take the opportunity to thank Frank and his team with the support that you've given to our school and our students and our faculty. It's I know we don't always say thank you enough, and your work has really been very much appreciated, and you've been very helpful. We kind of hear about it after the fact because board members don't get involved unless things go to a disciplinary hearing, and that's it. So I just wanted to say thank you. I know this is a difficult conversation. The board has not had a discussion about this yet, and at some point the board's role would be to support administrative recommendation or to not support administrative recommendation. So the board is not going to get in the middle of figuring out how money gets spent and so forth. The administrators are going to do that work.
Okay. So a couple of things. Adam, I appreciate your perspective. That's helpful. And certainly I think everyone would agree that, those kind of resources and building that community coherence is a good thing. And I'm glad you mentioned that the Hinesburg Police have really partnered, in particular, more so now than in the past, I think. And I think it's okay for me to say, I talked to Frank maybe 8 years ago or 9 years ago, and he didn't think the relationship was there, and they weren't really getting called, and he wanted to help more. And I think recently the relationship has been there, and
We're not afraid to call.
so yeah, so that's good to know. We're discussing, how much the town pays for CVUs, even without this, how much the town pays for CVU coverage, and there's probably a wide range there where, and I sort of lean, I think having CVU in Hinesburg provides benefits all the kids here. They don't have to drive 15 miles to get there. So there are some benefits there. If it's hard to actually measure how much support there, how much coverage there is, because we did have that discussion about maybe we should be charging CVU for the amount of time, and then it was like, it's kind of hard to really measure, and with a better relationship, it seems in my opinion, that, I wouldn't be pushing that a lot unless the board really wanted to continue to look at that. Looking at these numbers, these are all just sort of preliminary, but, I think I could support it, but it'd be hard for me to say Hinesburg now is going to take on a quarter of a person when we just came out of town meeting and said, we're well staffed, we're well staffed, and here's our budget, and we increased the budget a little bit. So it'd be hard for us to sort of take on, additional resources if we've just said we didn't need it and that we've got good coverage. So and I think the CVU board should be looking at this, and, a full-time person, there's a lot going on at that building, and you're not going to have coverage from 7:30 to 9 o'clock when, everything's done. But, I think it would be easier for the town to take on if, we didn't have to take on a quarter of a person or a half a
One of
full-time
the things
person.
that I'd say is the 180 days, for example, times whatever 8 hours is, that's time when we're not going up there, that our day shift patrol officer is not going up to work in a Mickey Mouse property damage accident in the parking lot or anything short of like a serious emergency. That stuff is being taken care of, which in a sense is freeing up our day guy.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say about the fact that, we've passed our budget and we've done all of that, we're dealing with circumstances that were not in play when we came to this. And it's just a matter of if you're a Hinesburg resident and you have a student at CVU, which I don't, but is that something that you might want to understand, hey, it's time for this kind of a thing. So I don't know if that would make a play as far as the way that the taxpayers would look at it. But like I said, I just wanted to give you some numbers to oh my God, look at those. And so if CVU does come to us, you've got an understanding of kind of things that we're talking about.
Well, I would think, this is just the start of a discussion. It sounds like, CVU is going to go off and do some more work. Frank, continue to work with them, obviously. I think if we come back to this discussion, I think we need to really dig into the numbers. So, if it's 180 days and an officer is going to have 2 weeks vacation in that 180 days or calls in sick, what are the true costs? Just so we know, because we're going to have to, address that for the town. And I think we also have to look at, the impact to the budget. And we didn't vote this in, so we can't spend that money without doing something. So, but it's certainly a timely discussion, and I think the way you framed it, that here's the benefit there, and it's not necessarily just a reaction to what's happening. It's maybe made you think, hey, let's look at this closer.
Yeah, I would just say the one comment, I tried not to go down the road where I sounded like I was being reactive, but I do need to react. It's really interesting to look at studies on the brain and how difficult learning is when someone doesn't feel safe, and the inability to bring in information. At some point, I'd love to share my email inbox of the past 2 months, the number of, it's sad. The reality is it's sad, the number of kids who have reached out, which touches me, that they're saying, I don't feel safe, I don't want to come to school, I don't, and a lot of that's the media attention, I think, that's been
Right,
put
but
on
the
this.
reality is what they're feeling. It's not the
Right.
Yeah, right. That's the reality.
So, but and I just think it is time. I'm pretty convinced that somebody pressuring our superintendent and board to be, it's time to act, because, I just, in good conscience, I think we need to take basic and thoughtful precautions, especially when we know it can be a benefit.
There are other
all the
benefits,
time.
yeah.
So,
Really?
I think, I would imagine that everybody would be in favor of having a resource officer. You hear these poor devastated parents and students saying, we never thought it could happen here. And so Of course, you think, wow, well, maybe it could happen here. But I think what a lot of us on the select board are having a problem with is when the officer is not there employed at the school, then we have to employ that officer in Hinesburg. So it would be great if CVU employed that officer year-round. I think then that question would be evaporated.
And one officer, one position changes the equation that drastically? Is what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
That maybe not tonight, but I'd love to talk to you more about how that is. Colleen, you said that the board hadn't talked about this at all, really?
No,
Formally, maybe?
I will tell you that
and
the
then-
board submitted a letter to the governor and legislators urging action related to school violence and gun safety issues.
Sure.
And, you know, to do something. And our board chair, Dave Connery from Shelburne, said that particular issue, he received more emails and comments from the community than any other issue in the past few years that he's been board chair.
So you anticipate some sort of motion or action by the
concern is
board?
that,
relatively soon?
community members are concerned and have a recognition that even though we want open doors, that's no longer the smart thing to do. And we've sort of have been talking about this for a year plus. I imagine that the board, what will happen likely is our April 17th board meeting. It will likely be a discussion. There may be a recommendation for action, but typically, like you, we have discussion and then action the next month. If we need to take action sooner, there's usually a mechanism to do that, but we like to have a full discussion before action. But it is, we do know as board members, we're hearing from people that just concern about our students. And I think that the concept of having someone who's connected emotionally and building relationships in the community is incredibly valuable. That's been a big focus for our administrators in the schools, is building relationships. And that's, as board members, we like to hear the updates on that. And to me, this is just a piece of it.
I very begrudgingly in Montpelier went out and advocated to have the buzzer system put in at the school.
Yep.
Fast forward a few years, you think about the situation that played out in the football field there, where the young man who had robbed the bank was unfortunately shot to death on the football field. It's hard not to go to the place and talking with Rob Evans, who's one of our state school liaison officers. He was saying that, those natural impediments of having those doors locked, that situation could have fairly easily played out in the gym, could have played out, and thank goodness there was, again, just that natural obstacle. And this is what things that Chief has been pushing me to think about for a couple of years. It's not a place that we want. It's not a thing we necessarily want to talk about, but we just need to be reasonable.
Well, to me, part of the discussion is that there's a legal liability of why you want to do it. The actuality of these types of things happening, I still think, are pretty minimal. And I just feel like the idea of building relationships, of people feeling comfortable with all kinds of members of the community coming to that school is really important. So I can appreciate the school and the superintendent's need to push forward this, but it's mostly, I think, from a legal standpoint of knowing that you're covering it, not from the practical standpoint that having an SRO is going to protect our kids any better. I think it's the idea that you're building relationships, you can anticipate things and know what's happening in the school, but on the potential of something happening, I would not be in favor of thinking along those lines. I think it's the long-term benefit of having the SRO. And I just really, really want to shy away from thinking about our schools as fortresses. Because if we call them community schools, then we should be doing everything possible to develop relationships with all kinds of people coming into the school. And I think CVU has done
well at that, and I would like to see that continue. Because I think the more, what they show is the more that people know their neighbors and interact with each other, that's how we build safety. It's not from.
Yeah, and I want to be really
stuff.
clear. For me,
Yeah.
it's not about a liability issue or what could be happening. It's also about what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is there are situations, I mean, there are things playing out across our community all the time. We've got kids in really difficult circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think about the preventative and the
Mm-hmm.
connection and the relation. I mean, it's amazing how that
I
can
have to say, just
intercede.
having the buzzer entries, I mean, HCS has had one for years now, and that's certainly a community school. It doesn't prevent people coming in and taking part in the community of the school. It just limits the access, and so that the office and the people there are aware of who's coming in and out of the building. So it certainly doesn't diminish the community involvement.
And just remember, the board may not support this, so.
Yeah, right. But, so I'll say, this is all new for us. And so I think our initial reaction, I'll say for mine, is like, what is this all about?
Yeah.
And but I definitely appreciate the fact that we get a little, advance warning or advance notice of this is being discussed and here are some ideas out there. And, we'll wait to hear, I think, from the board. And go from there. So.
Yeah, I also feel like, we have kind of mutual aid or response between all of the departments. And so I'm reluctant to right off the bat say that it has to be a Hinesburg police officer, because it could be a trained Shelburne officer or Williston officer, and Hinesburg Police would always respond to something at CVU, but it's the training and the all of the other overhead expenses associated with.
But if you're the Shelburne Select Board or the Williston Select Board, Charlotte doesn't count because they don't have a police department. How do you go to them and say, okay, well, we really don't want to do it, but now you're telling them? Why are they in a better position than us?
They aren't. I'm just
and-
saying, I think we're all in an equal position. And so let's try to think about this in a way that is fair to everybody. That's all I'm saying, is that let's be sure that we understand the costs to our community or any community that is going to host this, and the cost of the officer themselves
Direct
for
and indirect
the
costs.
indirect and what's the service that's being provided to the school and how we share it. So, that's all I'm saying, is I don't necessarily see that it's one department versus the other. I mean, from a practical and common sense, it seems like Hinesburg, but in reality, this officer is spending, is developing relationships, hopefully with everyone in the school, which means from kids from all the towns. So there's, I don't know, I think we can look at it that way and put pros and cons of why it should be Hinesburg or not. So.
All right, anything else?
Well, thank you for coming, and thank you for bringing this up. And I'm sure we will move forward and get a resource officer, and I hope that he'll never have to, or she will never have to, act in ways to protect the students from horrible things that might happen. But it sounds like there are a lot of other positive ways that interactions and relationships can develop from a resource officer. So I'm very pleased that you've thought about this and come to us with it.
Thank you very much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Thank you, Frank.
By the way, how's Maddie?
She's hurting a little bit. Yeah. Daughter broke her collarbone, and then I was coaching our daughters this weekend, and so she took kind of a shot there. But
At least it wasn't my daughter that banged into her.
yeah, she was in the hospital.
Oh, man.
The doctor's like, well, out of 10, what is it? She's like, I think it's a 6. I'm like, that's a 9. That's not a 6.
Oh.
She's a trooper.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
Night.
Thanks, Colleen.
Thank you, Colleen.
I'd love to stay to the end.
Oh, come on. Did you have some cake? You gotta have some cake on your way out. Take a piece.
This is a
Take it home. Yeah.
These are fun meetings.
Yeah, that's how we
Mark it on
do
your
it.
calendar every Monday night, the other Monday.
Hey, join us in December if you really want some
There
fun.
you go.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Bye.
All right. Next item is, I think, item 9. We hit them all, huh?
I think we got it all.
We kind of jumped around quite a bit, more than usual, but town administrator report. Town administrator and assistant town administrator,
There you go.
I guess.
I may defer to Joy. I've been working remotely, so I think we've had a lot of activity, but I'll let you provide an update.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
Thanks.
boy. Yes, on the spot.
Yeah,
Yes. Thanks for reminding me.
what would you, I'm feeling on the spot at the moment.
Okay.
What would you like to hear about, for example,
What'd you do this week?
well, since today's Monday, it's
Monday is a very long day. It's like a marathon Monday.
Marathon Monday,
Marathon
yeah.
Monday.
The town garage making progress?
It
Any
is.
issues
Yes,
there?
town garage is making,
There you go.
town garage is making progress. We went up last Friday and took a look at the salt shed, and we will further that, and the size, we will further that conversation tomorrow, but I think we agreed upon, and Mike seems pleased with the size of 70 by 120 for the salt shed in the location of the drawings. It's going to be fine. They're going to save it, the town is saving some money by moving some of the earth from the back, is that the north side of that? From the north side on their own, instead of having Bushy move it, which is a good thing. Things are looking good. It's
Moving
beginning,
along quickly.
it's really looking good. They got some siding that's gonna start to go up that arrived.
On time?
Yeah, yay.
Okay,
It's gonna really look like a building.
We should take a
very
road
short.
trip.
Yeah.
Can I ask how much salt does a 70 by 120 building?
It's
whole
like,
year.
A year's supply.
yeah,
That's a pretty big
it's a
building.
big building.
It's huge.
It's a really
You
big
can buy it in
building.
larger bulk amounts to get better pricing, but yeah, that's his plan to store a year's supply.
It's like 500. What's 500 what?
Probably yards if they're.
No, it's more.
Tons?
It might be in tons, actually.
Yeah, I don't remember what.
Yeah,
the-
it's
what the
huge.
volume- Yeah,
It's a huge
very
amount.
big.
Boy,
And water department, and they're going okay? Are we going to get a presentation on the permit, or are we gonna hold off on that?
Eric won't be back until mid-April.
April
And so it'll have to
17th.
be after, it'll be one of the May meetings, yeah.
Can you put it on the agenda so when he comes back, we know that it's going to happen in May?
Sure.
So he's
Sure.
aware.
Yeah, and I did talk to him about
Yeah,
that before I
okay.
left at all.
Yeah,
I gave him
yeah.
a
Yeah.
list of things that need to be in that.
and those guys are doing a great job, actually. John and
Bart.
Bart, they're doing a great job.
Can I add something to that too?
Sure.
Because I was talking to John the other day, and it was actually you had talked to him as well, and he's working hard to find ways that we can save on our stormwater.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be from the backwash or whatever you want to call it, out of the
wastewater
water.
plant?
No, out of the coming out of the water plant, the cast off water, whatever.
From the RO machines.
The backflush.
The
Oh,
backflush
the
stuff.
backflush
Yeah.
to the sewer drains and.
Well,
so
it's
they-
the manhole covers. I mean,
Right.
that was the really, I was going to bring that up, but yeah, I mean, I think that we really want to get a handle on how much infiltration. I mean, I think Eric has mentioned that, and John was really good at explaining what it is that
And we've seen
the
some
actual
data.
manholes. Yeah, I mean, so I think the other day it was, he had calculated what the flow out of the well was something like 166 gallons per
day or minute or whatever. But what was coming into, this was the day it was raining.
300.
Was, 300. And
Yeah,
so,
great data sheet.
and what I
Yeah.
did when all those numbers that I had showed you previously, I also went back and tallied up how much we had used in a year that is actually metered. And so that's what's metered is what should be going into the sewage treatment plant. And it is way, way less than what is actually being metered at going in.
So the capacity of our plant is, there's more capacity there that
If we
we've seen
cleaned up
this
the
data.
infiltration.
You see the data on the flow through the wastewater treatment plant and how it spikes during the rainy seasons in the spring. So, I mean, I will put together the rest of the numbers, but I think that that's a number that we really should get is, well, what would it cost just to fix all the manholes?
Right.
And to deal with maybe another way of
the effluent.
Effluent, because maybe that effluent is gray water that we could build some other kind of system that it doesn't actually come into. It doesn't have to go through the sewage treatment plant.
Right, it's not even gray water. It's
It's
just
clean water.
Well, but it has dissolved solids in it that have been removed by the RO.
By the RO, yeah.
But still,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it could be discharged a different way.
Right. I think there's lots of ways that we want to tease this apart.
This was brought up, I think, when Congressman Welch was here. I think you brought it up. And I've been thinking about it for the last week, saying that's right. There was that good data that said how much infiltration there was. And, maybe we should be, if we're going to spend some money, maybe, that in conjunction with maybe improving the processes we have might go a long way to adding capacity. And
talking to Smoke and Cure and Kimball Brook, because they are big users, and they, when the cheese factory was in operation,
there was treatment.
There was pre-treatment, and whether there's the ability to work with them and develop some other kind of pre-treatment. Unfortunately, some of the lagoons are gone, but I think that developing awareness to all of our users, and especially our big users, on what they can do to reduce not only the volume, but what the contaminants are that they're putting in there. So I'd like to, and John has mentioned sump pumps that might be directly connected that shouldn't be.
Right.
So, so the public education piece is big.
I agree. So I think there is a good potential there.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it like that.
Well, lastly, I will say it was very nice. Thanks to all who were able to join on Thursday when Peter Welsh did come. I think that went very nicely, and I think he was pleased to check out Hinesburg as well as we were pleased to have him here.
Yeah, how did it go after you left town hall?
Good.
It went really well.
Did you get samples at foam?
Yes.
That will not be disclosed.
Well, and Kimball Brook and Smoke and Cure.
We only went to Smoke and Cure and Foam, and the congressman did take all the samples from Smoke and Cure back with him. We were left with none, unfortunately.
Oh, that's okay.
But that's okay. We'll let it
get
go.
them usually. Yeah.
But it went well.
All right. Is that good for?
Is there anything to do with the health order that's worth mentioning?
Things are moving forward.
Okay.
Things are.
All the steps that need to be taking place are taking place, and everything is set in motion. So.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Green Up Day?
First Saturday in May.
We holding it this year?
Somebody's got to write an article quickly. Somebody will dust off the article from last year and put it in. But speaking of Green Up Day, last year we talked about doing it at the Bissonnette Fields, and so if there's somebody I should talk to about that. You know, and I don't mind saying personally, I like doing it here. This is where the food is. It's easy. But, you know, we explored that last year. So we could explore doing something like that unless there might be other things. There was talk about having a dedication and all that. So
I won't speak for the rec commission, but I think we have a plan in place for a dedication on
okay,
Mother's
so
Day.
that sounds good. That's close.
Which makes more
yeah.
sense and makes it easier for
Yep. Okay.
the
So
green-up.
unless somebody approaches, I'll just assume we'll go forward right here at Town Hall.
Yep.
So I think we're on Select Board Forum.
So I'll go.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to report that as of today, 2 weeks prior to the event, we've sold every Calcutta ball,
Wow.
which is very great considering it's the first year. Everybody's done a very excellent job selling tickets, and everybody seems very excited. It's going to be a great night. So if you missed out, next year, don't miss it.
The music is the Growlers or not? No.
I'm just going to run music off of,
Oh, okay. All right.
you know, the phone or something. No live music, but
Okay, that's all right.
yep.
Anything else for Select Board Forum? I had the one item. So it was nice to go to the phone brewery. The partner there is really pumped about being in Hinesburg. They want to expand even more. They just really, you know, seem to be really excited to be a part of that whole group. And they spoke highly of the owners of the, you know, the complex and how they work together. And Vermont Smoke and Cure, we got to meet a couple people there, and their business is doing very well. They're sort of expanding into different markets, and that seems to be going well. And their approach to getting workers was very impressive. And so it was just really, I thought that how they're getting workers and creating a community within their business, I was impressed with. And I thought it was an even better story than Vermont Smoke and Cure. So I was really impressed. So it's quite a nice facility.
What is unique about how they get
They're
employees?
reaching out into the community for people who really need some jobs and, you know, maybe have had some hard times and, you know, they're finding ways to provide the support needed and they're and you know, based on the people we met and
Giving people another chance.
yeah, and the management saying, you know, demonstrating we've got some really good workers here. So, and we're going to try to look at the bus system to see if it can better match their schedules. And there were a few other things like that. So that was really good to see. It's quite a great spot in town. And I think Peter Welsh, I mean, that's what we said. We pointed that out to him, but I think he could see that, that these entrepreneurial businesses, you know, really bubbling there in the heart of our village. Did we want to?
Yeah, just there was an email that came in from, I don't know if he's a Hinesburg resident or not, to all of us and to Renee and Joy commenting about the article on Joy.
Salary,
Just making sure that somebody replied to him.
I honestly, I chose not to reply to him. I felt that it was going to be the whole thing was going to be very antagonistic at that point.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I surely could respond to him.
I wouldn't just leave it unreplied.
Okay.
I would respond, if not answering his questions, at least if it's a him, I guess, asking him if he wanted, a conversation about it. It doesn't have to go through you. It could go through me. It could go through any one of us. If you want me to do it, I could reply to him.
Yeah, I
don't want to
more
leave
than
it hanging.
happy to reply to him. There's a lot that happened prior to that
With him or her or whoever it is.
with The newspaper itself.
So there's
and-
more to the story, is what
There's-
you're saying?
yeah, there
Okay.
is.
Yeah, I don't know any of that.
Right, and
Yeah.
I understand that no one would other than Renee and myself. And
Okay.
it's unfortunate that that was the response that we saw.
Yeah. So I'm just getting the tail end of
Yes,
something.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me digest it and see
All right, yeah.
what we think is a good approach.
I just thought it was.
Salary information is certainly public knowledge.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
mean,
what
we all
told
know
to the
that.
reporter.
We all know
Right.
that. So that's why
Yeah.
it
Right.
seemed like there was something
Yeah.
else there.
Right.
I think there was a question like this that came up another time, and I think maybe it was a reporter, I don't remember, and maybe they were being a bit demanding, and we were like, just look at the minutes and the budget, it's all right there. There's exactly what we have.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, we didn't know it at the top of our head.
Right.
And we're like, I'm not quite sure exactly, but it's right there.
Yeah.
And so,
That's somewhat a similar situation. Yes.
okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I think, it just reflects, if we're asked questions as board members, town folks, and, there's some information's public, all of our discussions are public, but I think I've been asked a couple times, and I'm like, I'm not really sure, I don't really remember, so I'm not gonna say.
Right,
And
but I
and
think
there's
it's
the
important to
minutes.
say, if I don't have an answer to something, I will say that, but I say, I can get back to you on it and give you that information. So I really do feel like we don't want to be evasive, it's just, we don't keep everything on the top of our head.
Right.
But we, if somebody asks for some information, I think we would all try to get it to them and be sure that we really understand the question that they're asking and their intention of that question.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And
getting
we
at.
certainly, at all of our,
It's all
we're
public.
not hiding anything. It's just
Right.
important to be sure that we really understand what the question is and be able to give people an accurate answer.
Okay. Anything else? Next item on the agenda is the minutes from 3:19. Is there a motion for,
I'll make the motion for you.
and a second?
Second.
I would like to report, I see an error in the minutes. And I read the whole thing and I found one.
Wow.
The first word, Selectboard.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm the only one who found it.
Last month it was the year, this month isn't.
Unless that was a comment about the
Maybe
meeting.
maybe we should, it's B-O-R-E.
Yeah.
Right.
Select boards.
I don't
And
know.
well, after that, I was motivated to find more, but I could not find any more. But maybe others had a chance to review and,
Well, the other thing is, we should put the attorney in attending the meeting.
oh, the executive session, yeah.
I mean, his name is in the
it
executive session, but do we list the audience as an audience or just, I don't know, it's just a.
It's one of those things, when
Yeah.
they don't sign in,
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
his name,
Yeah.
he didn't sign the list, so.
Right, okay.
I wanted to make sure that under consider setting water wastewater allocations, all of the numbers that we have in the minutes are what we agreed to. Do they look right to everybody?
That's a good idea. Nothing's reversed, you mean?
Yeah, well, that, but because we're going to
Get
use these
Carl
minutes to
Bolin
go
in here.
back and
Yeah.
research it,
Yeah.
like what did we say, and I would just want to make sure that we all remember it.
I did not specifically,
numbers.
I mean, they looked right, but I didn't specifically. We could go back and look at our,
At the March.
at the March meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's kind of an important one, since these minutes will be used for that reason.
Right, because we did move them around a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe they are right, but
You added 10,000 to category 2, is the change that you made.
And hence you took 10,000 off the category.
Right.
Is everyone looking at that?
It's the original. This is the original.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
62,616. And we added the 15 and 15, made 15 on category 2 rather than 5, so you added 10,000 to that.
32 of 15, right?
And so then the balance remaining was reduced by 10,000 in category 3 to
62.
62,616.
So it looks like we're okay. Is there anything else with the minutes?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for.
Well, we had a motion, I think.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Aaron and Andrea.
Well, we know how you're gonna vote now.
Andrea, are you all
Yeah,
set?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
fine,
so
yeah.
all those in favor of approving the minutes as slightly modified, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and none opposed, so that motion passed. And what about the warrants?
I'll make a motion to approve the warrants as presented.
And then make the agenda item.
Okay. So we'll add that to the agenda. It's a slight mistake, I guess. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Including payroll.
Yes, payroll
Including
and.
payroll, yes.
Yeah, AP warrants. And unless there's any other business, motion to adjourn?
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh,
Can we discuss the changing of our schedule?
oh, yeah, we could do that.
Have we checked to see what the every other Tuesday with the DRB looks like with regard to VCAM?
So one of our thoughts was to change from Monday to Tuesday and do it on the opposite week from the DRB, which we think is Tuesdays.
The DRB is the first and third
Yeah.
Tuesdays of the month.
So we would be the second and fourth?
Second, fourth Tuesday of the month.
Do we know if that works with VCAM?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's
Ask.
float that out for everybody to come back to the next meeting or via email.
Second and fourth
yeah.
Tuesday of the month.
Yeah, and then we'll check with VCAM to see if that
And are we
works in
talking
their
just
schedule.
for
and
the
Val?
summer or permanent?
Just signed up for a 10-week class on Tuesday nights.
Okay.
But you already know how to take minutes. You don't need to take a class.
Fencing class.
Oh, I'll go with you. That sounds fun.
So 10
Well,
weeks
what
would
about if
bring
we
us
think
to.
about for the summer going to Thursday and then starting in the fall going to Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean,
And then
it's a
Val
10-week
can-
class, I'll be done in
Yeah.
10 weeks. And then we'll be on our summer schedule.
Just do our Thursday.
Do our
summer.
Thursdays summer and then
Oh, didn't somebody have an issue with Thursday?
Well, we
Was it
can
you, Phil?
start in June. We
In
started in
June.
June.
and then in the fall go to Tuesday. I mean, does that help you guys to make it Tuesday instead of Monday?
It helps by a day, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's certainly.
How about if we did it on the 31st of December? You get the whole year.
Wow, wow. Yeah, I mean, I think anything is help.
Anything but Monday is gonna
Anything
be
but
better.
Monday is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This doesn't help your short term
Not especially.
conflict.
Because if it's not till June, I mean, that's half of April and
Yeah.
all
And
of
May.
May.
Yeah. Well,
So you have
Thursday's
a
hard
conflict
for
with
me.
Mondays?
If
right
we,
now?
I mean, potentially we could switch a little in May, and you would end up missing 2.
I could do
Right.
those from,
Oh,
you know,
from the
Yeah.
Yeah.
VCAM.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to do all 10 that
No,
week, but I could
no.
certainly do.
Well, it would be a
Yeah.
maximum of 5,
Yeah.
and maybe less than that, depending
Yeah.
on the
If we
calendar.
did it in
certainly do
June,
a
if we-
couple- Yeah, I could certainly do some of them that way.
So
Does Tuesday work for everybody?
What dates are we talking about starting at this point? We're talking about starting in April then?
Well, I wouldn't mind starting.
Well, the
We only have
16th
one more meeting.
the
right?
16th is already
Yeah,
tied in.
16th, and we've already talked to people about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, the 16th.
So the
is
first
So
of
we'd
May.
stay in May.
That's fine. The one on
Yeah.
the 16th is fine.
Yeah, so
So
we're
we'll
talking
do it the 2nd and 4th week in May.
8 and 22 are the dates.
Oh, that works well for me.
8 and 22.
This is like a major change.
Yeah, we're gonna show up at the wrong day.
We'll have to call each other.
So,
and remind each
Call Maureen and ask.
Renee and Joy, will you work with VCAM and see if that's gonna work for them? And then maybe just send out an informational email, and unless somebody else says, uh-oh, I forgot something, we'll plan to switch in May.
That works.
And
And are we switching just for the summer or
for May, well,
Let's see how it goes. I mean, I'm open to.
for
I think they are
potentially
especially
being-
The motivation would be to make, I think, it a little
Permanent.
easier for them to prepare.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so then potentially we could say it's the 2nd and 4th Tuesday from now on. Through the summer and into the fall.
Well,
I mean, I think that helps in a couple ways in that there's Monday holidays,
Right.
so we don't have
Right.
that, and gives a little more time for there to be public notice.
Yeah.
So,
I'm fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to switch some other meetings, but I think
yeah.
I can do
There's-
that.
As we go through the year, I'll have conflicts, but,
Yeah.
you know,
Let's take a
But-
look. Let's assume, let's say, unless we have an issue, and if anybody has an issue, they can bring it up, but that we'll try to make that change come May, and we'll just flow right through the summer and into the next year.
All right.
We'll have to make sure that it changes like the Hinesburg record and all those places.
Yeah, right. So with that, go ahead.
We'll make a decision at the next meeting, it
Yeah,
sounds like.
a
after
final
we kind of like
decision,
think
yeah.
about 2nd and 4th Tuesdays.
By then we'll know for sure. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Right here.
Tom made it.
All right.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
All right?
Aye. Motion passed.
Riley, did you say no?
Yeah, I want to stay here.
And again, it's before 10.